by building of new fifth compressor station in Lakšarská Nová Ves. Then we implemented together with our Hungarian partners interconnection with Hungary. Later, we introduced reverse flow, physical reverse flow to Ukraine. And as it was mentioned already, we built also interconnector with Poland. It was introduced just recently in August. Current status is that on 14th of August, we managed all necessary technical tests. Pipeline is fully ready for operations, and we asked municipalities and state authorities for final approval for operations, so it's just administrative works necessary. So if we take it from perspective of preparedness of transmission of any other source rather than Russian, we did our homework within last years, and currently our transmission system really is interconnected with all adjacent countries and with sufficient capacities. Here I would like to highlight that it was thanks to visionary decisions of especially private shareholder, Energetický a průmyslový holding, and very good cooperation with state authorities and state shareholder, because not all of these projects were economically viable. So some of them were really decided without economic visibility, and good example is Slovak-Poland interconnector. At the time of FID, real bookings or binding demand of market was questionable. Now the project is ready right in time, and not only Slovakia will benefit, but the whole region. And of course, we have some additional source and additional projects prepared how to increase our flexibility. I will start with Slovak-Poland interconnector. So current capacities are 5 to 6 entry-exit, but we have measures prepared, and we are in discussion how to even increase if there is a demand and a need. In first stage, up to 7, then later to 9, and maybe if there is real demand, we can increase it to capacities close to 11 BCM. The same I can say with Austria. There is quite significant entry capacity, which can be, let's say, easily in the short term significantly increased, and also there are projects and possibilities how to increase capacity of interconnector with Hungary. On this slide, I would like to show you what is the impact of current situation with Russian gas deliveries to our system, the system of Eustream. We have here annual transmission volumes since 2014, and here you can see that average transportation volume within the last 8 years is about 57 BCM. We noticed some drop in transported volume even in last year, 2021, which is quite significant. But this year, this trend continues. Currently, year to date, we are at 20 BCM transported. Until the end of this year, we expect that we will come to figure somewhere between 25 and 30 BCM a year. It can be demonstrated clearly on this graph. Here we have last 8 years, as I said, so average daily transportation 160 million per day, which stands for mentioned 57 BCM a year. And here, by blue color, you can see sample of this year up to date, up to now, September. And you can see declining trend. So until now, average is around 80 BCM, which stands million per day, which stands for roughly 30 BCM a year. but the trend is declining, so that's why I said that the figure final will be lower. So definitely, Eustream is affected by the crisis, and it's clearly visible on transported figures, and it will certainly be moved also in our financial performance. And now let's move to European perspective. So here in this graph, I have European gas balance within last years in 2016. So in this column, we have overall consumption of EU plus UK plus Switzerland. So here we see increasing trend of consumption, and last year we end up with consumption in these countries, EU plus, more than 500 BCM a year. How it is sourced? This is indigenous production, which is slightly declining, as it was awaited, to be honest, so nothing new. Then we have quite stable deliveries from Norway with limited upside potential, unfortunately. Then we have North Africa, quite stable deliveries, about 40 BCM, with limited upside potential from reasons which was said by Andrea, because also Africa needs some gas for their domestic market. So we can expect for future stable deliveries, but not too much upside potential. Then we have column Other, which stands for Azeri gas, TAP deliveries, and I would say only flexible source of today, which is LNG, and declining Russian deliveries, which is clearly visible between figures until year 2021, and here for 2022 I have figures for year to date. What is interesting to highlight is that there is significant increase of LNG sourcing in Europe. Year-to-date figure is almost 100 billion cubic meters, which is higher figure than the whole last year. We can also see quite significant drop in demand. Year-to-date is minus 13% compared to year 2021. Year-to-date is minus 11, 11. And we expect for the comparison of the whole year, 2021-22, minus 13, which is very close to target, which was set by European Commission, and it's at least minus 15%. So what are messages from this slide? Flexibility is in LNG, unfortunately, as a source. Savings in consumption if Europe and European Union is really a must if we would like to survive. And very important is what is the level of storages. And this is the second graph, what you can see here. I plotted here what was the situation with level of storages within last years, since 2015, the range. With black curve, we have current level. Currently, in European Union, we are here, so fullness of storages is at a level more than 85%. You can see also years where we were in better position, and these are years 2019. But if you remember, at the time there was big uncertainty with Russian and Ukraine negotiations on future transition contract for 2020 till 2024. So a lot of companies made their preparation and put a lot of gas in the storage. So that's why it's so high, and it is blue color, blue curve. And then we have green, which is year 2020. Here we are. And this was year of Corona, where gas price is very low at the time, €5 per 1 megawatt. what would we do if we have such prices now? So that's why at the time was economically viable to put gas basically into gas storage. So this is not bad, and this is last message of this slide. We are at quite good level of storages overall in Europe. I said that only flexible source is LNG. So let's look closely, more in detail on that source. So here I have table with demand of the whole world divided to regions. I highlighted, of course, Asia, which is for us very important. I will say why, and our region, Europe. And we have here years since 2018 till current. Here figures are year to date, and I have here also estimate what is anticipated for the whole year. So what we can see here is that supply or consumption of LNG is slightly increasing year by year. And now I can focus on Europe. There is a visible, quite significant, dramatic increase in consumption compared to 2021. It's 61 BCM for the whole Europe, and we achieved, estimation is more than 160, but for countries for which we've made the analysis, I mean EU plus Switzerland plus UK, its level was 150 BCM. From which sources it was covered, so you can see that there is significant drop of Asian market. So this was significant source for Europe for this year. And second source was that we attracted all liquefaction capacities which were available for this year. And this is clearly visible from this row. So here up I have consumption, and this is figure what are available liquefaction capacities, so what is source. And it is correlating with the consumption, what is good news, so slightly climbing up. And what is interesting to see, that there is always certain ratio between available sourcing, so liquefaction capacities, and their usage. The ratio is about 80 to 85%, and even in this year, when there is so high pressure on LNG sourcing and prices are so high, the ratio remains the same, 83%. So we don't know what is the exact reason. It's probably operational reasons, that there are some maintenance period for these capacities, there are some time needed for handling of cargoes and so on. So this is what we have to take into account in our sourcing analysis. Here I have what we anticipate. Source is from Heren and Argus in upcoming years in liquefaction capacities. So I start with year 2022, and here we have which capacities are anticipated to come worldwide. So something in Africa this year, but only at the end of the year, because effective capacity is quite low. So we don't have this capacity available within the whole year. That's why its influence for this year is only limited. And here you can see upcoming years. I will stop in 2023, where effective capacity which should come on world market is roughly 16 BCM. I have no specific message for this table, but I will use this figure later. I will remind you then when I will use it. But there is one message regarding to Asia, and was mentioned as a very important thing by Andrea. This year, European Union attracted gas from Asia, but it was thanks. They have corona problems and some problems with HDP growth. But if this recovers next year, Asia is definitely a competitive market to Europe. So maybe next year we will compete for that source. And it's very important to take into account for upcoming winter. Okay, now a lot of colors, but I promise I will explain. So this is projection, what we think that will happen in upcoming winter and or upcoming 2 winters. We plotted sourcing, I need this, from 1st January of this year till November 24. So we covered 2 upcoming winters. Very important curve is this red, which means maximum supply limit of European sources at a very single moment. It means that if we have certain consumption, which is black curve, this red represents what sources, including storages, are at that particular moment available. And what is important, that red curve is well above the black curve. Only under such situation we have enough security of supply for to supply. So we can see that we can be quite satisfied for upcoming winter, but there is only limited flexibility for winter 2023 and 2024. Other colors means how this demand, as I said, which is represented by black curve, is sourced. So gray, it's indigenous production. Blue is Norway. Then we have North Africa as yellow. Green is LNG. Until today, we have here Russian deliveries by red. But this simulation takes into account that there will be stop of gas flows as of 1st of October. So what will happen if Russian supplies will stop in October? And then we have, of course, storages, dark gray. And if you here see periods in year where colors or sourcing is above the real consumption, this is amount which is injected into gas storages. And these are areas where gas storages are withdrawn. And maybe one more interesting information is this blue curve, which is reality of 2021. So what are the messages? First, here we have real consumption until today, which is this point. For upcoming winter, we take into account what I said previously. So there is some saving in amount of -13%. So basically, the amount of consumption in 2021, which stands for more than 500 BCM, we decreased by 13% for upcoming winter and by 15% for winter 2023 and 24. So from this perspective, there is one good message, that it looks that even without Russian gas, we could survive. But under a lot of prerequisites, that's why I suppose we have to do everything that Russian supplies continues and are not stopped, because otherwise everything is very, very tight, either in terms of security of supply, which is our first goal to secure, and secondly, due to high pressure on gas prices. If gas market is lack of sources, of course, situation is very difficult, and gas prices are very, very volatile and very, very high. And as I said before, if we are not able to continue with the trend of LNG for upcoming year, then we will really have problems to source Europe on next winter, not upcoming. And another message is, again, it is very important to save energy in European Union, so to have drop in gas demand. I discussed this with different stakeholders. I suppose that Eastern Europeans are accustomed for what we in Slovak say trenírková teplota, means temperature households for shorts and t-shirts. So I see quite big potential that if we put temperature a little bit lower, so in Eastern Europe there is potential to save without stopping of industry. But when I had the same discussion with stakeholders from Western Europe, where there is no such long-term regulation on gas prices for households, they are more aware that energy is expensive commodity, and they started a lot of these measures before. So the potential for this, I would say, easy saving is limited. So we will see what will be final result, but I hope that minus 15% is viable, and will be, if this is viable, also for a longer period. And another message, of course, now we can see a lot of effort how to manage price, how to make gas prices or energy prices lower. There are a lot of proposals, but what is, in my view, important, to implement it in a way that everybody is still motivated to save gas. If we say, or if politicians say to households, oh, no problem at all, we will secure you, then this motivation for savings disappears. So last message from this slide is savings are important, and whatever measures will be implemented, there should be motivating element in it. Okay, now let's focus more what could happen in upcoming years without Russian gas. So I start with consumption of last year. So again, the same figure, more than 5 BCM, here is average. If we reduce it by 15%, it stands for consumption or reduced consumption 530 BCM. So this is our target. And here we have sources, what we have immediately available, or how the sources were available during this year. And we have overall figure 414. We have here indigenous production, Norway, North Africa, Azeri, plus LNG with all this increase which I described before. And I plotted it here. So what we have else? We have 8 BCM more because we noticed that during this year, regasification capacities in Europe were not used at 100%, which were available. So we can gain something like this if we, next year, this is analysis for not upcoming winter, but for the next year, 2023-24, we can use it. Then there are a lot of projects, LNG, regasification, which were announced all over Europe, and some of them very quickly even for this year. So we can see some potential that if this is finalized in 2022, then we can use it next year. Then what we have is what is called rerouting of Norway and Algerian gas. Germany up to now has no LNG terminals. UK has a surplus of LNG capacities. Both countries are connected by pipelines to Norway. So if there is a plan how to reroute or switch deliveries from UK to Germany, and this will be exchanged to LNG, then we can save another BCM for sourcing. And the same idea is for Italy. If Italy uses Algerian gas, which is currently delivered to Spain, because both countries are connected to North Africa, and Spain has a lot of unused LNG regasification capacity. So the same idea, this amounts to 22 BCM. And of course, there is a lot of projects announced for next year, especially in Germany, which stands for 26. So from this perspective, it looks that we have sourcing and coverage of this flexible LNG for next year. But what we need to say, now I add the figure, what I left a couple of slides before, and it is liquefaction capacities. So sourcing, it have to go hand by hand. We don't need only regasification, but also liquefaction as a sourcing. And the situation there is really limited. I add this figure about 16 BCM, what I explained on slides before, and you can see that we are really at the edge. Then later, I mean in years 2024, 5, 6, new liquefaction capacities will come, but it will last some time. So for upcoming year, it will be really, really very tight. That's why, again, maybe good news for market that there is a scenario which we could manage sourcing for Europe even without Russian gas, and maybe this will lead to calm down of markets. And if markets really see, I don't know, at the beginning of winter or in the middle of winter, that it's manageable, I suppose that it will have positive impact on gas prices. But at the same time, we still should keep Russian gas flow because it's important in this equation. Now let's move to last part of my presentation, which is project Eustream. Probably you know this project. We brought this idea a couple of years ago together with our partners from Romania, Hungary, and Bulgaria. Basically, idea was to build brand new high-capacity pipeline across the region, connecting different markets and focus on Eastern Europe, which is the most vulnerable region in terms of dependence on Russian gas. We plan to build 56 inches diameter of pipeline with length of more than 1,200 in a way that operation would be very efficient, capacity very high, 20 BCM, expandable to 40 BCM. Idea behind was to connect different markets. First, to bring Caspian gas to Europe. And we see that in June there was signed a strategic partnership between European Commission and Azerbaijan, signed by President Aliyev and Ursula von der Leyen on increasing on gas supplies. And we suppose that it's recalling of the original idea of Eustream, and maybe now we would like to introduce as a first step possibility of utilization of current capacities of our regional networks. I mean, capacities of Bulgaria transmission system, Romanian transmission system, and Hungarian transmission system, which are not too high, up to 5 BCM at the moment, with some necessary amendments, but it can serve as a first step. And of course, I underline, we are ready also for second step, for higher deliveries. And if the Eustream is implemented already as it was planned, I suppose the whole region now is in much better situation. And here I have just last slide. There is current production and the whole transmission capacities of infrastructure via South Caucasus pipeline and TANAP from Azerbaijan is at level of 17.7 BCM, and either production, either export infrastructure can be increased. So there is this potential. And if I come back to other possibilities, this is a list of LNG projects, LNG terminals, which were announced only in Germany. So there is another potential which could Eustream or our networks bring to the region. This brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Rastislav, and we will continue with another presentations from Szabolcz Ferencz, and please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Rasto, for this global and European outlook regarding our current situation, which is not easy and very flexible, very changing every day. And I think it is really very unwise to predict anything, and I don't want to speculate. But one thing is for sure, that nobody would have expected before February that we would discuss regional infrastructure development under the current grave circumstances that have serious repercussions for the whole world, but inconceivable for the people of Ukraine fighting an impossible war. So my panel will focus more on the Central and Eastern European region and our close markets. And we all remember the 2006 and 2009 crises. And back then, we felt on our skin what dependency means. And that's why we started, as Eustream just showed on the map, all projects to have some kind of infrastructure development, to diversify and to connect our networks. And so now we have found ourselves again in this extremely challenging gas situation, but at the moment not to the same extent as it was in 2009. And within the CEE region, because this is a so-called undefined region, what exactly means CEE, I took the opportunity to look at 4 countries, which are easy to look at. Well, they are all parts of previous Habsburg monarchy with very similar people, culture, buildings, and style. If we go a little bit closer from our perspective, then clearly we can see that these countries are completely landlocked, without direct access to possible alternative sources or possibility of the LNG imports. Actually, this is quite a unique situation, because in the 27 European countries, only Luxembourg is landlocked. But this is a very different picture than our countries. And secondly, where we have a combined consumption of 32 BCM and 92% is really comes from Russia, and so our exposure is ranging between 85 and 99%. And actually, but the good thing is that this region provides 22% of the EU's gas storage capacities, approximately 22 BCM, while only 8% of the EU's consumption. So here we have a kind of an advantage. And only 7% of the gas needs can be met from domestic sources, if I count these 4 countries together. While this rate is in the EU 27, 11%. and as I said, our exposure is really high. And if I am looking how this was reflected in prices, then of course, let's say between March and August 22, so after the war has started, the average monthly day-ahead prices in the respective national hubs in the 4 countries were between 2.2 and 6.7% higher than the corresponding TTF prices. If I take the same number for 21, so before the war, that is, the range is between 0.3 and 2.2. So don't get me wrong, gas prices in the middle of the CEE have been usually higher as the TTF under normal circumstances, as a result of the transmission costs attached to bringing the gas into the heart of Europe. But the data I have shown you underscores that after the war, other factors such as limited access to alternative sources have also been priced in, and so the premiums were increasing. Now, if we have talked about gas dependence and market conditions, let me elaborate a little bit on the possible alternative supplies, because these can help to ease our current situation. We have to be realistic a little bit, because I think this is our way of thinking in between TSOs and people from the gas industry. And I am looking to the first 1 or 2 years options. So basically, yes, we have capacities. I'm talking only about non-Russian capacities coming into our region. But basically, if I'm taking one by one, starting with the orange arrow, the northern direction, so possibly the quickest alternative source option in 2022 comes from Poland, because 3 key pieces of the gas infrastructure came online this year, or are coming online this year: the Baltic pipe, the Poland-Slovakia pipeline, and the Poland-Lithuanian pipeline. And so CEE countries may have access to these new sources. However, fierce competition is already there for the alternative sources coming from the north. So the real diversification potential is limited by the capacity of the Polish-Slovakian point at 4.7. But we all know that our Polish friends have to replace around 9 BCM Russian gas within their own consumption profile. And therefore, the quantities of the Baltic pipe and the extension of the Świnoujście terminal, which may come online next year, so we'll cover that. Simply we'll cover that. And therefore, to be realistic, the currently anticipated extra volumes reaching these 4 countries will likely not be more than 1 BCM in the coming year, as I think the rest will be used by Poland itself. Going further, in the western direction, well, there are plenty of capacities, 56 BCM capacities, but the problem is again with alternative sources. Because we presume that the real extra available sources will be at maximum 3 to 4 BCM on short term again. These sources come likely from the Dutch LNG terminals, and we saw also what the Czech booking were in these terminals. And other countries as Belgium and Germany can play also a role, and also the Zeebrugge extension in 2024. But Germany, in fact, needs to replace 46 BCM Russian gas, which is a huge exercise. And so, therefore, most of the quantities will be likely absorbed there. Therefore, as again I said, the Czech example for 3 BCMA from the Netherlands could provide as an example for source diversification. I took the western direction for both Austria and the Czech Republic together. So the capacities from southern western direction are also meaningful with 7.2 BCM, so from Italy. But again, extra volumes to the 4 countries is not likely to be more than 1 BCM, mainly coming from gas sources in Italy, which needs to replace 28 BCM of Russian gas. This is also a huge exercise for Italy. And the 2 announced LNG terminal developments on the mainland are around 10 BCM. In theory, of course, flows could increase from North Africa, as there is spare capacity in the pipelines. But there are also bottlenecks within Italy from south to north. So this all limits the transmission of additional sources and also our possibilities to accessing supplies. Fourth is the LNG from Croatia. There are available capacities of 1.8 BCM, and we are importing around 1 BCM, and there is no additional volumes available for the coming year. And last but not least, we believe that there are good perspectives from southern gas sources at the Romanian-Hungarian interconnector, because due to the recent advancement, we will increase with my friend Mr. Sterian to 2.5 BCM capacity from this October. And, well, this is a great achievement in our cooperation with Transgaz, and we foresee that in the coming year, so in 2023, this route will be highly utilized with quantities above 2 BCM. So to sum up all the directions, so we can probably source 9 BCM for our countries, whereas our consumption is around 32. So this is why actually we are saying that physically it is simply not possible to replace Russian gas in our region. Short term. Now, if I'm looking a little bit more in the future, then of course I may have a vision, because this vision will give us, TSOs, the tasks what we have to deliver for the next year and for the over next year. And if I'm jumping now in my vision to 2027, then probably the picture is much rosier, because new FSRU from Gdansk will already be used in 2027. It is 5 BCM extra, which can reach the block. Then I think the Polish-Slovakian interconnection will be really fully utilized for our countries. And I'm sure that with this initiative from Azerbaijan and with further good cooperation with our Romanian friends, now I'm going the clock backwards, so in the other direction, the southeastern sources will increase to 5, 6, Jon just told me 7 BCM as a result to expected exploitation of Black Sea gas resources, LNG development in Greece, and of course utilizing reverse flow, the Trans-Balkan pipeline. How exactly this can be achieved, I think my friend Mr. Sterian will explain you shortly. So we'll have extra quantities in the market in the next 3-4 years. To enable these flows, of course, the import capacity at the Romanian-Hungarian border would need to be doubled. The Croatian Prime Minister has also announced that he plans to increase the Kirk terminal to additional 3.5 additional import capacity, and this is an absolutely welcome development. and this gas can be distributed to our CE region and the neighboring countries. Croatia needs to replace only a little bit more than 1 BCM Russian gas. So these expansion volumes can really reach the neighboring markets, but for this, again, 280 kilometer pipeline development is needed within Croatia. From Italy, I don't have too much expectations. I think further LNG terminals are expected to come online in the next 2 or 3 years, providing additional import sources, but these are only partially replacing still the Russian quantities. So therefore, I think the export into our region is limited in a range of 1 to 3 BCM. And finally, the ramp-up of the planned German and other northwestern European LNG terminals. Germany, Belgium, Netherlands could provide meaningful additional import opportunities. But if we count together all the LNG developments, we'll come to a figure of 45 BCM, and I just remember you that Germany needs to replace 46 BCM. Well, I think definitely it will be a costly exercise. And besides the LNG opportunities, the extra Norwegian production, Rasto just mentioned, could add to this direction as well. So all in all, we are totaling extra volumes probably to be expected in the range of 6 to 8 BCM. I was not counting in this whole exercise with the consumption reduction, which is, of course, a must for all of our countries. So, a long story to tell it shortly. By 2027, the alternative sources will ramp up, and we will have maybe an infrastructure in place which will reduce our vulnerability, and we will have definitely options from where to source our gas. But for this, we have to work hard in the next 3 to 5 years. And many of these developments are interdependent, so one development does not make any sense without a similar development in the neighboring country. So I think the role of the regional cooperation will be definitely increasing in the next couple of years. So it's plenty of work ahead of us in Central and Eastern Europe gas sector. And I believe that working in this spirit will allow us to move further on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I will invite for the next presentation Mr. Sterian, and his presentation will be held in Romanian.
Mihai Harta. Bună ziua, doamnelor și domnilor. Se aude, nu? În primul rând, vreau să felicit organizatorii acestui congres de la Budapesta, pe Richard, Rastislav, să salut prezența bunului meu prieten, Mirlav Topolanec, care ne leagă ani mulți de bună colaborare, să felicit cei doi colegi și prieteni, că practic suntem o echipă împreună cu Rastislav, cu Szabolcz și cu Thomas Sepien, CEO de la Gas System, care în luna decembrie am inițiat și în luna martie am semnat primul memorandum între cele 4 TCO-uri pe injecție de hidrogen în conductele de transport gaze și pe partea de decarbonizare, la care ulterior vor adera celelalte state din centru, TCO-uri din centru-est Europei și țările baltice. Practic, pe coridorul nord-sud, suprapus cu inițiativa celor 3 mări, din care toate statele din centrul-estul Europei fac parte sunt partea acestei inițiative, care are și un fondul inițiativei celor 3 mări, la care fiecare stat parte are contribuția lui. Eu mă referi în primul rând despre infrastructura din România și din estul Europei până în zona Mării Caspice. Ia să văd, dar nu merge aici. Nu mă descurc. Așa. Vreau să vă spun că România se află într-o situație mult mai bună față de celelalte state. Noi avem o dependență astăzi de circa 10% de gazele din import. 90%, exact invers, față de cele 4 state, Ungaria, Cehia, Polonia și Austria. Pentru că avem producție internă și ne asigurăm circa 90, poate și mai mult, din necesarul de consum al țării. Pe partea cealaltă, avem cea mai mare infrastructură, foarte modernizată, de transport din centrul estul Europei și Balcani. Avem 8 stații de comprimare. Să-l parafrazez pe prietenul meu, Szabolcz, sunt de 5 stele când l-am invitat la inaugurarea uneia dintre ele. Și ce vedeți cu albastru? După cum știți, majoritatea, la 31 decembrie 2020 s-a finalizat Stream 2. La 1 ianuarie 2021, Stream 2 prin Bulgaria și Serbia și conexiunea cu Ungaria. Coridorul transbalcanic are o capacitate de 25 de miliarde de metri cubi, o capacitate de transport, care era într-un singur sens. Rusia, Ucraina, Moldova, Ucraina, România, Bulgaria, Turcia, Grecia și Macedonia. În vara anului trecut, la Transgaz, am transformat cele 2 conducte pe reverse flow. Ce înseamnă acest lucru? Pentru că se cunoaște foarte puțin, mai ales la Comisia Europeană, ca alternativă de aprovizionare cu gaze a țărilor din centrul estul Europei și Balcani și numai, inclusiv a țărilor baltice și așa mai departe. Una din conducte, Tranzit 2 și 3, cu capacitate de 20 de miliarde, pe teritoriul Bulgariei, alimenta cu 14 miliarde de metri cub de gaze Turcia, cu 800.000 de metri cubi Macedonia de Nord și diferența pentru Grecia, transformându-se pe reverse flow, acum și prin sistemul turcesc de transport care e conectat la Transanatolian Pipeline și la gazoductul Baku-Tbilisi-Erzurum, un gazoduct de 6 miliarde de metri cubi, Baku-Tbilisi-Erzurum. Din discuțiile cu conducerea companiei Socar și cu ministrul energiei din Azerbaidjan, practic s-a creat un nou coridor de transport gaze, care poate prelua până la 14 miliarde de metri cub de gaze din zona Mării Caspice. Prea puțină lume știe. prea puțin se vorbește la Comisia Europeană. Că nu întâmplător, doamna președinta Comisiei Europene, Ursula von der Leyen, s-a deplasat la Baku recent și a semnat acel memorandum de cooperare între Azerbaidjan și Comisia Europeană. În același timp, Turcia dispune de capacități de gazeificare prin 6 terminale LNG, dintre care 4 FSRU, de circa 60 de miliarde de metri cub de gaz. Nu folosește, anul trecut, din discuțiile cu conducerea Botașului, cu CEO-ul de la Botaș, n-a folosit decât 25%, circa 15 miliarde de metri cubi. 45 de miliarde de metri cubi stau nefolosiți în Turcia, în terminalele de LNG. Mai departe. Bulgaria și Grecia au mărit capacitatea pe reverse flow, pe interconectarea cu lata Siderocastru. Ieri am primit invitație când mă deplasam aici la dumneavoastră, cu mare drag, să învăț prietenii și să discutăm. Invitație de la Ministrul Energiei din Bulgaria, că în sfârșit, pe data de 1 octombrie, se va inaugura punerea în funcțiune a IGB-ului, interconectorul dintre Grecia și Bulgaria, Comotini, Stara Zagora, un gazoduct de 182 de kilometri, pe finanțat cu fonduri europene renambursabile și pe PCI. Și de vreo 10-12 ani de zile văd că în sfârșit anunță că l-au finalizat, după ce au mai avut o ceremonie la începutul lunii iunie. Cred că vă amintiți toți. Gottfried, să aduce aminte. Ce s-a creat acum? Deci coridoarele sunt operaționale, nu mai trebuie investiții mari aici. Un nou coridor pentru sursele alternative de gaze din zona Mării Caspice, și nu spun numai Azerbaidjan, și Turkmenistan și celelalte state ex-sovietice. Terminalele de LNG din Turcia. Coridorul transbalcanic, care are o capacitate totală de 25 de miliarde de metri cub de gaze. Spuneți, intră gazele toate în România, sursele. Cum merg mai departe? Prietenul meu, Szabolcz, ce am lucrat împreună și am mărit capacitatea de la 1 octombrie și a fost și licitată la 2,5 miliarde către Ungaria. Și lucrăm în continuare să mărim gradat până să ajungem la 7 miliarde. Luând în calcul sursele de gaze din LNG-ul, din terminalele turcești, din terminalele de la Alexandropolis. Deci la Alexandropolis, Gaztecu, compania care implementează, nu e vorba numai de un singur terminal. E vorba de 2 terminale, cu capacitatea de gazeificare a fiecăruia de 10 miliarde de metri cub de gaze. Primul se va finaliza în decembrie 2023. Deci vor veni 10 miliarde de metri cub de gaz din LNG. Terminalul de la Revitusa și-a mărit și el și îți mărește capacitatea al companiei care operează operatorul de sistem DESFA. Cum puneți întrebarea mai departe, ajung în Ungaria 2 miliarde jumate de la 1 octombrie. Ce face Slovacia, ce face Polonia? Adică să contribuie cu parte de securitate în aprovizionare cu gaze, nu total. Pe coridorul transbalcanic am avut ieri o întâlnire la altă conferință foarte importantă la București, organizată de Federația de Patronatelor de Petrol și Gaze din România, cu foarte mulți invitați, 22 de miniștri a energiei au fost prezenți. Și am avut o întâlnire cu ministrul adjunct al energiei din Ucraina. Se poate folosi coridorul, deci o parte intră din gaze pe coridorul transbalcanic și pe interconectarea Giurgiu-Ruse, care mai are și ea 1,5 miliarde de metri cubi și se poate mări instantaneu la 3 miliarde de metri cubi, către Ungaria 2,5 miliarde și lucrăm. Deci asta e funcțional oricând, de la 1 octombrie. Și cealaltă pe coridorul transbalcanic, România, Moldova, Ucraina și în partea de nord către Velico-Căpușan, către Slovacia. Și mai departe, prietenul meu, Rastislav, știe și fluxul gazelor mai departe cum funcționează. Deci există toate infrastructurile de transport în partea asta a Europei. Ce nu există? Informații clare care să le știe, în primul rând, cei de la Comisia Europeană. Și aici lucrăm la o scrisoare comună, inițiată de Rastislav, Eustream, Transgaz, FGSZ și Gazconex din Polonia, să informăm pe doamna președintă a Comisiei Europene, Ursula von der Leyen, și directoratul DG Energy în ceea ce privește aceste facilități care există. Lucrăm pe coridorul nord-sud, deci coridorul nord-sud e de la terminalul de la Sejnovice, Gdansk, nou terminal de la Gdansk, FSRU, până în Grecia la Revitusa, impactând toate statele care sunt pe acest coridor, practic cele din inițiativa celor 3 mări. Situația va fi alta. Că LNG, vă spun eu că există. Comunicare nu există. Dacă ar comunica toți factorii, cum comunicăm noi OTS-urile cele amintite, situația ar fi alta astăzi, mult îmbunătățită. Ce vedeți cu roșu? Pe partea României e gazoductul pe care l-am construit Ungheni-Chișinău. Dacă Republica Moldova rămâne fără gaze, noi avem posibilitatea că toată infrastructura este operațională, funcțională, imediat gazele să ajungă la Chișinău. Suntem în grupurile de lucru cu specialiștii tehnici de la Transgaz, FGSZ, Eustream, Gazconex și de la ceilalți din zonă, ca să putem să transformăm aceste gazoducte care sunt astăzi, această infrastructură pe gaze, în infrastructură pe hidrogen cu costuri cât mai reduse. La sfârșitul anilor 2000, peste 3-4 ani, vin gazele, altă sursă, care vin gazele din Marea Neagră. Adică, practic, producția de gaze a României se va dubla. Crește și consumul de gaze în România. Că există un amplu program guvernamental de racordare a tuturor localităților la rețeaua de distribuție de gaze. Dar va fi și un potențiale volume suficiente pentru export. O problemă că puteam azi se poate prelua 6 miliarde de metri cubi. De ce nu se pot prelua 11 miliarde jumate? Pentru că există o strangulare în Bulgaria și de-abia ieri sau alaltă ieri, la o scrisoare comună, Eustream, FGSZ, Transgaz și Gaz System, către CEO-ul de la Bulgar Transgaz, Malinov, care trebuia să fie și el prezent aici, dar din motive obiective, că e cu ceremonia de deschidere, nu-i prezent aici. Circa 63 de kilometri de conductă, că noi ne-am clarificat că nu înțelegeam de ce. Au fost folosiți din tranzit, conductele de tranzit pe coridorul transbalcanic, au fost folosiți pentru Stream 2. Și va trebui să construiască acești 63 de kilometri ca să mărească capacitatea de la 4,5 miliarde de metri cub de gaze până să ajungem la 14 miliarde. Și mai e o problemă, dar se va rezolva. Bulgar Transgazul nu are un acord de interconectare cu Botașul din Turcia. Vedem, merg la Sofia, mai ne întâlnim, discutăm, vom avea o întâlnire și cu Malinov în sfârșit cu toții, după ce se va elibera cu activitățile. Să vedem IGB-ul ăla, că operațional de la 1 octombrie. Deci, dacă e să luăm așa, cele 4 țări cu cele 32 de miliarde de metri cubi, 30-32 de miliarde de metri cubi, păi s-ar acoperi din partea asta, din zona caspică, terminalele de LNG, LNG-ul din terminalele din Turcia și Grecia, plus ce vine din partea cealaltă, că se finalizează și Baltic Pipe, gazoductul, am înțeles, în toamna aceasta, spre sfârșitul anului, și să găsesc soluțiile ca să nu mai crească prețul. Că prețurile astea, vă spun, sunt artificiale astăzi, care duce la dispariția competitivității produselor și la creșterea costurilor calității vieții pe aproape la toți cetățenii, mai ales impactați mai mult din țările astea care suntem așa, mai sărace, dacă să spunem, față de cele occidentale. Mă refer ca venituri medii salariale în fiecare țară din țările noastre. Cam aceasta e cum se stă cu infrastructura. Dar noi, tot astăzi, mâine, începem să definitivăm Rastislav, Szabolcz, împreună și cu Thomas, care iar din motive obiective n-a putut să fie aici. Scrisoarea către Comisia Europeană, către doamna Ursula von der Leyen, ca să știe ce infrastructură există. E exact documentată scrisoarea, e exactă pe capacități, pe infrastructură și așa mai departe, și probleme care le consider că nu sunt mari, ce sunt acum. Vreau să vă spun, și într-un minut îmi închei, necunoscându-se despre acest coridor, care astăzi scrie negru pe alb în scrisoarea lui Malivon ca răspuns, la rezervarea de capacitate pe cardam negru-vodă a rămas peste 80% liberă capacitate. Azerii declară că sunt factori de securitate pentru Europa și vor mări volumele. Și ce rog eu pe toți care suntem prezenți aici, din centrul estul Europei și pe voi de la Viena, ca să nu mai se întâmple ce s-a întâmplat cu Nabucco, Steiner, haideți să convingem Comisia Europeană că să nu mai treacă la etapa a doua de dezvoltare a TAP-ului, de la 10 la 20 de miliarde, să meargă în Italia, că a explicat destul de clar și bine prietenul și colegul nostru, Szabolcz Ferencz, că nu prea vin gazele de acolo, că nu sunt către țările din centrul Europei. Că există cel puțin pe 10 miliarde acest coridor care practic e operațional și funcțional. Și se diversifică gazele azere și din zona Mării Caspice și din terminalele cele din LNG-ul gazeificat în Turcia și în Grecia, atât în Italia cu 10 miliarde, cât și cu 10 miliarde în centrul Europei. Adică, practic, în zona asta a noastră aici. Nu știu dacă m-ați înțeles ce am spus, dar aici trebuie să facem front comun. Că italienii sunt interesați, că le cresc veniturile, venind 20 de miliarde. Dar la noi suntem mai mici și mai nebăgați în seamă. De aceea trebuie să fim o voce puternică și uniți la Comisia Europeană. Să știe exact cum stau lucrurile. Că stăm mult mai bine decât câte informații au. Mă refer ca infrastructură și alternative. Vă mulțumesc mult de tot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sterian, for a very interesting explanation. And I will start discussion with one question from Slido. So where do you see the future of your company in case that no gas from Russia will be delivered and deliveries will be based on Norway and LNG? And if could be the alternative, this Balkan way described by Mr. Sterian, and to which extent?
Okay, I can start.
Yep.
Well, of course, as I said, our company originally had 50 years of deliveries of Russian gas from east to west. So it's quite obvious that it's quite a problem for us to manage somehow this situation. Nevertheless, as it was explained in my presentation, since 2009 gas crisis, we did a lot of homeworks, and we are basically ready to transport any gas in any direction. So this would be first part of my answer, to focus on these volumes. And if I come back to Russian gas, currently we are at a very bad situation. This is war, which it's unprecedented. Russia is aggressor, undoubtedly, but I hope that reasonable time, there will be a solution, then everybody involved will be wise. I don't know what does it mean. If it does mean that Ukraine wins, or it means that there is change of regime in Russia or whatever, but I hope that it will have positive solution. And history shows us that it's always good to cooperate even after big conflicts. So I hope that if this is solved, and hopefully in very short time, then there is no reason to cooperate again. So there are two ways to sum up. Well, of course, we have to take into account the situation, and for Europe, this is really lesson learned. So for future, we have to have for everything alternative, either for gas deliveries, for other sources, because once it's general rule: if you are dependent on anything, then you are weak. So first lesson learned: we have to have alternative, but again, if it is solved, I suppose that there is no reason then later to cooperate if the result is positive.
Thank you, Mr. Ferencz.
Well, as I also told in my presentation, so Hungary has a relatively central position in between northern, southwestern and eastern directions, and clearly we see and we have big hopes also in this inflows from Romania, either from Romanian production or from Trans-Balkanic route coming from Azerbaijan, an initiative which we are fully supporting. Basically, I think I am also optimist in the sense that sooner or later, even if we currently do not see the solution, but sooner or later things will settle and there will be a more peaceful time coming. Mm-hmm. However, I am absolutely sure that those infrastructures which are currently built, let's say German LNGs, they will be in function for a very long time. So it won't be a switch back to Russian gas for many, many reasons, for vulnerability reasons, for financing reasons. So once this will be built, it will be in place and it will be used, and the role of Russian gas in our region will diminish.
Okay, Mr. Sterian.
Așa cum am mai spus, România e într-o altă situație mult mai favorabilă față de celelalte state. Noi nu o să avem probleme la iarnă. Sau dacă va fi ceva excepțional care va depăși imaginația la toți care suntem aici prezenți. Avem gaze magazinate astăzi, peste 2 miliarde jumate de metri, miliarde de metri cub de gaze. Avem o producție domestică de circa 25 de milioane de metri cubi de gaze. O să ajungem la un procent de magazinare la peste 90% din capacitatea de înmagazinare. Infrastructura de transport a României, a Transgazului, este foarte modernă și corespunde necesităților de asigurare de securitate, de export de securitate energetică, și mă refer pe domeniul gazelor, către țările din centrul Europei, cele 4, Ungaria, Slovacia, Austria, Cehia, Polonia. Important este să fim uniți, să comunicăm gaze vor veni odată cu interconectorul, cu IGB-ul, văd fluxurile de gaze din Marea Caspică venind. Prietenul meu, Szabolcz, că de aceea lucrăm și conlucrăm împreună, mi-a spus cu poate un an de zile că molul din Ungaria e unul din acționarii de la Shah Deniz și are o cotă de producție importantă. Ca pondere în consumul de gaze al Ungariei. Și lucrăm aici ca să poată să-și aducă gazele din Marea Caspică direct pe ce am prezentat la dânsi în Ungaria și să aibă o dependență mult mai mică de gazul rusesc. Asta își doresc și de aceea avem conlucrare, numai, pe toate planurile avem o conlucrare de excepție. Și cu Rastislav, și iar am repetat de mai multe ori, și deasupra noastră la tuturor avem un mentor, Mirek Topolanec, care acum e foarte ocupat, Mirek. E cu telefonare, dar niște mesaje. Așa. Și aș vrea așa la sfârșit, Mirek, o personalitate marcantă, nu numai a Cehia, a Slovacia, a Cehoslovaciei, foste Cehoslovacie, a Europei, să ne adreseze câteva cuvinte aici, așa, ca un mare specialist din diplomație, a devenit și în diplomație energetică și în gaze. Și ce rugăminte am la colegii mei, dacă tot există principiul rotativ al organizării acestui congres, cu acceptul dumneavoastră, aș dori anul viitor, că avem mai multe evenimente marcante în România, printre care și începerea lucrărilor pentru exploatarea gazelor din Marea Neagră și 115 ani de transport gaze în România, acest congres să-l organizeze Transgazul sub egida Guvernului, Ministerului Energiei și așa mai departe. Și ce demersuri trebuie să le fac aici la noi. Dacă sunteți de acord să mă susțineți. Deci, cu Thomas Sepiem problema e rezolvată, cu Steiner e rezolvată, că vorbește și cu cei de la Gasconec și e invitat la București să țin un speech acolo într-un panel. Mulțumesc mult de tot.
Thank you very much for invitation and good idea. But you mentioned also that you three are in a very close cooperation. I mean, companies of the TSO from Romania, Slovakia, Hungary, also Poland. So in these terms, how do you see the chance that the Eustream project will be realized in the future? Because this project is directly touching you and your countries. So, we will start?
Yeah.
Okay.
Deci, rapid. Deci, okay. Două variante, A și B.
Rapid, I understand.
A și B. Eustream-ul, când au venit cu prezentarea Mirek și Rastislav, prin 2014-15, așa, eram 4 variante. A venit studiul de fezabilitate, a venit cu varianta prezentată de Rastislav pe coridorul Brua în România, ca să se reducă costurile, că pe teritoriul României peste 800 de kilometri. Nu mai avem timp să construim varianta ce a ieșit din studiul de fezabilitate. Că până în construim noi ne apucă 2030. În 2030 lumea va fi altfel. Alta. inclusiv în domeniul gazului, hidrogenului și așa mai departe. Avem varianta patra, cea pe coridorul transbalcanic, operațională imediat. Da, totul depinde ce se întâmplă cu situația din Ucraina. Adică de pacea, liniștea și războiul ce e acolo. Adică de securitatea gazoductelor, mă rog, transportul. Asta se poate aplica imediat. Ca să ne apucăm să construim. Eu am construit. Ce n-a construit niciun TSO din Europa în ultimii 5 ani. Peste 1500 km de gazoduct. Peste 8 stații de comprimare. Dar vă spun că durează toate, nu construcția în sine, că avem constructori, unii sunt și aici în sală excelenți, foarte buni. Durează formalitățile, cu terenurile, cu acordurile de mediu, partea socială și așa mai departe. Și într-o lume astăzi, total nemulțumită, la nivel regional, la nivel european, la nivel mondial, nu e bine să-i deranjezi prea mult, să-i săcăi cu lucruri din astea.
Thank you very much. Now I fully understand what rapid means. So please, Rastislav.
Băstură, mai pe Schnell, mai pe ca la Viena, la Steiner și la...
Okay, if I can add, well, of course, there were several options when we came. The idea, even the first one, was to utilize Trans-Balkan pipeline and to dedicate one of the pipelines to shorten the time for implementation and also to be cost effective. And only after we came with the idea of brand new pipeline. So our position is, okay, there is a space for such idea again. There is a strategic membership between Azerbaijan and European Commission. There is definitely need for another sources. The source is there. It can be unlocked. So as a first step, we would like to come with quick solution, because we need solutions quick now. And if then there is a demand, we are ready to implement any option which is economically viable. Either it will be further usage of existing infrastructure, as it was proposed by Jon, or it is completely brand new pipeline or part of brand new pipelines. Everything depends on how we attract demand for that region.
And this will be a part of in the letter for
yes. This is what we would like to kick off the discussion, because now there is a time, so we would like to start the discussion with our common proposal, and we will see what the time will bring, and we are ready also for second stage, whatever it will be, either as Jon promised or any other option. There is more options on the table.
Okay. Ferencz, Mr. Ferencz? Nothing to add?
No, I don't think that I can add anything to the previous comments on this. So we will definitely support this project, and we want to be a central part of it. I would like to come also to one of the questions.
The first one.
That's the first one.
Because that's important to clear.
So I can read first. Yeah.
Okay.
Because there is somebody who tried to make a dispute between both of you. So how do the pictures from Rastislav? No big problem without Russian gas 2023 and Szabolcz. Big problems in Austria, Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic with Russian gas merge. Any solutions? So,
yes. So actually, this difference in opinion is only a difference at the first sight, because what is true for overall Europe is not really valid for this sub-region. So it's both are actually true. And this is the big difference between capacities and molecules, because I'm always trying also my colleagues at ENTSOC to hold back, because if you look only at the capacities, we are perfectly fine. Hungary has 44 BCM import capacity at the consumption of 10. So we don't need to do anything. And actually, Hungary can be fantastically delivered only from Austria and Slovakia. So the two IPs would be theoretically enough for the Hungarian consumption, but there are other molecules, neither extra molecules in Austria or in Slovakia in the current situation to fill this gap. So unfortunately, our region has a higher vulnerability, and the big picture, what Rasto told, is very relevant for the prices, because the prices are settled at the European level. But our regional problem stays as it is until we are not solving it in the ways how we described just before.
Okay. I definitely do not suppose that we are in contradiction what was presented by me and by Szabolcz. And basically, what I presented is one of the scenarios with a lot of prerequisites. So there is scenario under which we can survive upcoming winter, and the question is for 2023, also upcoming year. But there are I have to once again highlight that it's overall picture for the whole Europe, whereas Szabolcz focused on the region. And if you take, for example, one of the prerequisite, it's saving in consumption. For example, Spain, I suppose, don't have so much motivation to save up to 15%, because basically they have enough liquefaction, regasification capacity. So if they save less, then somebody else in the overall European picture has to save more, for example, Germany. But again, my picture was overall, and this is a big prerequisite for that it works. Second, and maybe more important, is LNG, because this year, as I highlighted, we attracted almost all available LNG from Asia, because they have decreased in consumption, plus everything which was on top in liquefaction capacity. But this maybe will not be a case next year. And then remember red light, red curve and black. Then if black for 23 is below, then we have big problem with Russian gas. And if I put it regionally, then we are completely in correlation with message what was explained by Szabolcz. So to sum up, there is a scenario in which we can survive. And that's why I explained it, because I suppose it's one of the ways how to calm down the markets in order to decrease gas prices, because all contracts, either long-term or short-term, are indexed somehow on spot market. So it's in our common interest to calm down the markets. But we have to bear in mind all the risks involved in such scenarios, because there are also a lot of scenarios where which without Russian gas are not manageable.
Okay, there is one more question for all of you, gentlemen. At the moment, infrastructure is cheap relative to commodity prices. Which infrastructure project would be your #1 choice to see built, and why?
Okay, very shortly, for the whole Europe, as I said, LNG terminals as an alternative is necessary to build in order for the future. We, or Europe, have alternative in discussions with everybody. But it doesn't mean that we should avoid Russian gas. It's, again, I have to highlight, after the war is positively, I really hope that it's positively solved somehow, then it should be one of the source, and we have to have something else for negotiation. It's always good position. So #1 is LNG terminals, to have alternative. And of course, I mentioned Eustream and whatever solution.
Mr. Ferencz?
Yeah, well, I think here every country has a little different perspective, because probably for the Poles, the Baltic pipe is the priority number one. Probably for the Germans, the LNG terminals are currently number one. For Hungary, probably the further development of the Romanian-Hungarian interconnector would be the priority number one. But as an overall perspective, from a European perspective, probably this Southern Balkanic corridor could bring the most as an additional extra volumes to Europe. So that this is why we are also supporting Eustream.
Mr. Sterian?
La Transgaz, dacă infrastructura o avem cam tot ce e necesar. Avem primul proiect pilot și unul din puținele din Europa pe injecție de hidrogen în conductele de transport gaz. Și dorim să vedem cum se comportă gazoductele cu hidrogen în procente diferite, crescând în el, ca experiența împărtășită de aici, să o împărtășim împreună cu ceilalți colegi și sunt convins că și celelalte TCO-uri au proiecte pilot pe acest domeniu. Că gazele nu vor fi transportate într-un singur sistem, într-o țară. Vor circula de la o țară la alta și trebuie să ne aliniem de acum la procentele de hidrogen până la transformarea în gazoductelor, de a transporta numai hidrogen. Și noi conlucrăm foarte bine aici și suntem avansați. Dar asta, când am spus de cele 4 companii, nu exclude pe celelalte. Deja celelalte din centrul-estul Europei sunt invitate într-un grup tehnic de lucru, coordonat de colegii de la Gaz System, cu infrastructuri, ce infrastructuri sunt necesare, ca să putem să definim un concept pentru țările baltice, adică practic pe coridorul nord-sud, pe inițiativa celor 3 mări, care practic cuprinde centrul-estul Europei, Balcani și țările vestice și țările baltice. Deci noi lucrăm, colaborăm, nu suntem vocali, pentru că noi suntem specialiști, profesioniști, nu suntem de meserie paneliști și speaker la conferințe. Cu toate că mulți ne-ar dori să ne aibă în paneluri, speakeri, și primim fiecare, cred, 10 de invitații lunare. Dar n-avem timp să mergem. Poate Steiner are timp mai mult, că el nu lucrează decât cu laptopul și cu calculatorul la cec.
Okay. Thank you. That's also a good point, this question of hydrogen injection, because this is also a huge challenge, and there are also several European initiatives like European Hydrogen Backbone and so on to blending and potentially in the future transmitting 100% of hydrogen. So how do you see the perspective of hydrogen, the question which currently raised Mr. Sterian?
Of course, for us, hydrogen is important fuel of future. It's one of the renewables, which, if we would like to target goals of carbon neutrality, have to be taken account. Eustream is part of many initiatives how to amend our network in order we are able to transport in first row mixture of natural gas plus hydrogen, and as a final destination 100% hydrogen, so pure hydrogen. But it's still a lot of work to be done in order to make this viable. And I have to highlight again strategy of European Union. We have no doubts about final target, about achievement of carbon neutrality, We just would like to highlight that there is important how we get to that final target, and we suppose that one of the lessons learned is that we should not obey or dismiss solutions which are workable and change them only when the new solutions are prepared. And this is, of course, from our point of view, valid also for hydrogen, because we need a lot of work in order to make it reality. But it's very valid, and we see it as a future of gas transportation.
Thank you. Mr. Ferencz.
Thank you. Well, the prospect of transforming our systems into networks which are able to transmit blended methane and hydrogen or pure hydrogen is there, and we clearly see the benefits on the long run, and we clearly see that this can be one of the solutions of how to store energy in the future, which is basically much more cleaner possibility than everything else. However, in the current circumstances, I think we see what has happened on the power market and how the prices are at the power market. And currently, to be honest, if somebody has power production, then it's not thinking on how to transform it into hydrogen, but it's rather thinking how to sell it at these very, very good prices. So currently, there is exactly due to this shortage of gas and now everybody wants to transform as much as possible into electricity. We will have a 1-2 year shortage on electricity, where we have then a little bit time to prepare ourselves, because technically speaking, this is not an easy exercise, especially in those networks like ours, which don't have too many parallel pipelines. So it's not an easy solution, but we will definitely use this time frame for all the necessary preparations until this will kick off in a larger scale than currently. What we are doing are experimenting, but nothing more.
So we got only a few minutes, and last two questions in Slido. So Rastislav, you mentioned the necessity of new LNG projects, and there is a question that if isn't more and more LNG infrastructure threatening pipeline business, overcoming transmission and direct LNG supplies to the cities, large consumers like in Spain?
Well, we have to differentiate between states which have sea and inland states. For us, it is only one of the sources which have to be somehow transported from its origin, what is LNG terminal, for example, in Spain, in Germany, in Poland, in Krk, whatever, towards final destination. So from this perspective, of course, it's not threatening inland pipeline business. But what definitely it means, and especially for countries or companies like we, where our history is clearly together with Russian gas, is that volumes will not be comparable. If we were supposed to transport vast amounts of Russian gas, and there will be new orders for LNG, definitely for the region, it means that volumes will not be completely comparable. So this would be focal part of the change.
Okay. And the last one is probably a remark on your address. So you presented the best case scenario, at least from business people. I would expect realism, unlike with politicians.
It's interesting that I am second day president of Slovak Gasoil Association. I am blamed to be politician. Definitely not. basically, what we tried, or what I tried to show in the presentation is that what will happen if there is no Russian gas. And this is real risk. It can really happen if you look at the development, how Russian deliveries are still dropping. You can see what happened with Yamal, with Nord Stream 1. Transport volumes via our system are still working, and I hope it will continue, and I would be more than happy that everything will be recalled to the original state, and we will transport previous amounts of Russian gas. Nevertheless, I think it's very, how to say, responsible for business people to also prepare for scenario when there is really no gas. And once again, I have to underline, there is scenario, it is a task. What everything we can do in order we manage it. And this is basically what I wanted to show you and present in my presentation. But again, to highlight, there, and several times I highlighted, that there are really strong prerequisites which are very risky to implement. And we will see what will happen. First task is to survive this winter, and you see how dynamic current times are, and everything can change even in days, and then scenarios will be completely different.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end. Thank you for your attention, and thank you all panelists, Rastislav, Ňukovič, Szabolcz, Ferencz, and Jon Sterian. Thank you very much for interesting discussion. And I would like to invite you for a lunch either here or downstairs in the restaurant. So enjoy your meal, and we will be back here afternoon at 3 o'clock with the next panel. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.